Welcome to the Alchemy of Ascension Season 3, harmonizing light and shadow to embody your mystical power and purpose. I'm your host, Washela Sananda, and today it's my pleasure to introduce you to Andrea Guendelman. Welcome, Andrea.
Welcome. Thank you so much
Yeah,
for the
I'm so
welcome.
happy to have you. And this is my first time interviewing Andrea. So at least for our returning audience, you might be a new face. And I'd love to just start by sharing from your bio so people have an understanding of your background.
Sure.
Andrea Guendelman is a writer, speaker, and entrepreneur who specializes in expansive leadership, helping individuals and organizations unlock potential through openness. Andrea has come to embody an inspiring and unique kind of alchemy, fluidly transitioning between the worlds of business and spiritual growth. Andrea earned law degrees from Harvard Law School and the University of Chile. She is in the Executive MBA program at MIT's Sloan School of Management. She is a leading force in creating platforms for minority professionals and the tech industry, and so much more. And you have such an interesting, diverse background. I'd love to just kind of start with your origin story of how did you go from, lawyer, business oriented, world. Well, you're still business oriented, but how did you switch and start being interested in the world of spirituality?
Thank you for the question. And it's a very interesting question because I just came back from where I originally grew up in Chile. And in Chile, this world of spirituality is still, among some people. For example, my brother, every time I would raise a spiritual concept, he would that's like crazy talk. Don't talk like that. But we would arrive to the same conclusions, but just using different words. He would prefer to use, the words from Freud and psychoanalysis, and I was using the words of spirituality. At the end of the day, they're very similar. But I guess my first encounter with spirituality, I come from a Jewish family from Chile. But my grandmother was the daughter of rabbis from Greece, and she was incredibly spiritual. She wasn't she was esoteric. She meditated. She, followed all these things. And so I grew up with her as a role model for that. And then her two sons. One was a PhD astrologer. The other one was the Undersecretary of Treasury in Chile. But they all were very spiritual and esoteric. So that part of the family, very esoteric, spiritual. The other part of the family, very kind of right brain, like science, and this is how it is. So I think that has always been in my world. And then when I lived in New York City, I worked as a lawyer in a big law firm, and I started studying under a woman called Catherine Scheinberg. I don't know if you know her. She's very well known. She's also an esoteric Jew from the education as a psychotherapist and the Freudian and all that, sort of good stuff of pedigree of psychotherapy. But then really her teachings were all esoteric and spiritual. Visualization, and then I started getting into this again. Her name is Catherine Scheinberg, for anyone that knows her, very well known.
That's really interesting that you wouldn't, normally I wouldn't think that in the world of, being a lawyer and all that comes from that you would have such an esoteric influence. And how I guess it's life leading you toward your path, your destiny, or however you want to view that. But it's also really kind of an amazing benefit to have been raised with both sides, the esoteric and the scientific. And I think we're finding too, as we move forward with science and spiritual are colliding more and more all of the time. And we're finding that those teachings that were used to be so spiritual are becoming scientifically provable in many cases. So the worlds are coming together. And
Yeah,
you're a
definitely.
great example of how that happened in your own.
And I can tell you a little story, but I basically was this weekend I was in a class at MIT, and the class was about using data analytics for your leadership. Kind of okay. So one of the professors was a Moroccan CEO from a company that he has grown, was a public company he took, and he took it private, and he grew it. And he was talking how he transformed the company. When he was talking about he transformed the company, all his concepts were spiritual. Like they were about, I was like in shock, in awe that the words that he was using, the things he was using. For example, he was talking about the path is the path. He said the path is the success. Is the path is the answer. The path is all. So basically, in this he transformed a company. And in transforming a company, his whole entire goal was the path, not the end goal and the result. And I could never thought that those concepts could be applied to a corporation. So this is something new that I'm also trying. So people that have been in corporate transformation and now, sort of like the very successful ones are kind of like using these concepts that are very spiritual in nature.
Yeah, to appreciate the journey and make the journey what it's about rather than the end goal. That is very different than most business concepts, for sure. And
because the end goal doesn't exist in a way, like the reality, you're creating a new reality, therefore there's no such thing. Like the only thing you can do is like have a vision and a path, but you don't have that thing that you're trying to change towards doesn't exist really yet. So it's all very mystic. I mean, I'm glad that you're covering.
yeah. And so let me ask you this. What was it that had you leave your law career?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So in the world that we move in, we talk a lot about divine feminine, divine masculine, right? Like, so that we're embracing an era of divine feminine. And it took me a while to understand that, but basically I came of age in a country, like my generation in Chile is like Hillary Clinton in the US, like that type of generation, like we're first women to go into kind of men professions and, become like really, empowered where I grew up. So we were like a generation behind. So I grew up in that generation. Therefore, to make a change, I wanted to be an actress, but to make a change, I decided to go in a male-dominated profession. And the one that suited me the best, because I wasn't that good at numbers, was law. So I made a decision right there, right then. I was gonna like not be an artist because that was too female, and I was gonna be more male. And what a male would do would be to go to law school. So that's what I did. So it was like always almost like killing myself, but I was like, I'll do this. I just will do this. I will do this. And I did that. And I graduated top of my class. I, of course, hated it, but I did, right? I went to work in a law firm. I hated it, but I did. Very good. And then when I saw that many of my classmates were going to study in the United States and getting their master's in law at very fancy schools, and I was a better student, I'm like, they're doing it. I will do it. And I applied and I got in at Harvard. So I was like, well, I will do it. And I proved everybody wrong. And then I kept proving everybody wrong because I got like a permanent position in a New York law firm, which was like almost impossible to get for a Chilean. And I did it. And it was all about proving this male wrong where I came from. It was all about that until I got tired of it, because that was my motivation to be a lawyer. It wasn't that I loved being a lawyer. I hated that. I hated that, the practice of law. I didn't like it at all. And I was always brewing in myself, how do I become creative again? And really living the law is like getting divorced, because it's like a very stable, secure position. Like it's a very, gives you a lot of security, right? So living it is not easy.
Yeah. So you broke through all of these boundaries from where you grew up in Chile, and you moved into, you got your law degree, you went and, went to Harvard, got this amazing job at a law firm in New York. And then at some point, I mean, that's a lot of work that it took you to get there, but clearly it wasn't your true purpose or what you felt in your heart. So what was it that had you finally be able to say yes to your inner calling and have the courage to leave that position? Because that must have been scary and kind of
Ooh,
unknown for you at the time.
super scary, super scary. I was in New Mexico at the time. By the way, New Mexico, we moved from New York to Washington, D.C. I was a lawyer then in the federal government, working for the Export-Import Bank. Great job. So we got to travel all over the world, got very well paid, but like very, very good hours. And then my husband decided to become a professor, so we moved to New Mexico. New Mexico, I found the new spiritual wave there. It was like a huge new spiritual wave in New Mexico. It was big. And I started hanging out with that, and I started like opening up to other things. There were other possibilities. And that's when I started seeing a new therapist that was like also very esoteric. And we started working on this. And through dreams and dream therapy and play therapy, I was able to kill the lawyer, accept that. And it took me years and years of spiritual work, therapy. Like it was not easy. Journaling, tons of journaling. I just knew I would write and write, and I knew there was someone else in me that wanted to come out, and it was kind of locked in this, in a prison. And I had to like either escape the prison, kill the lawyer. So in my dreams, it was a process of killing the lawyer where the justice would find me and they would like try to like take me to prison. Like it was intense.
Yeah, that sounds intense.
It was intense because it was hard. It's
Yeah.
a big paradigm, to break, to say.
It is. It is, especially when you spent so much effort proving yourself and then you did it. You did the thing that you set out to prove and more. And then, so where did that take you from that point? What did you do next?
So now when you're telling me this, I'm starting feeling not stupid, but like in a way it looks stupid from outside. Like, why would you do that? Right? Like, why would you like, why would you? But it's just because when it's not sustainable for somebody, you do that. Like as you stay in a marriage, when it's not sustainable anymore, you leave it. Like when the thing you're doing is not sustainable. And I guess I could have like ride the wave and change with the profession. So I'm not saying that I felt I had to leave the profession, but another response that I look now from my more mature self would have been, I could have rode that wave of the profession and found the thing more creative within the profession. And I don't know, like that's a thought, that not necessarily is incorrect. So what did I do with it? I knew that I needed to like, so I thought I was gonna quit for a year. I also, when I was quitting, it wasn't like forever. It was like, I'll quit, I will find in a year what I find. If not, I guess I always can go back to being a lawyer. And so I decided I need to find the creativity, because that's what it was kind of had been blocked since I was 18 when I decided to go to law school in Chile. And so I went and enrolled myself in the fine arts school at the University of New Mexico, because my husband was a professor and I could do it for free. So I did it. And I started, doing fine art. It has nothing to do with what I wanted necessarily, but it was kind of a new way, a new thinking. And then I started, and then I decided I wanted to do a documentary. So I started doing film, and I went to film school in New York. I was looking for the creative part until when I was doing this documentary and going to film school in New York, a cousin of mine in Chile told me that he was in a production company. He was bringing artists, musicians to Chile. Chile was growing like crazy. And he said, we need to have a different type of event. And I had just moved from New Mexico to Boulder, Colorado. And in Boulder, Colorado, there was this whole movement with people 10 years, I was 40 at the time, people 10 years younger than me, starting all these entrepreneurship movements. They would go and pitch in front of people, and that was kind of a social event. I didn't understand it very well, but I understood that young people love this stuff. And I said, why don't we do an entrepreneurship event? And he didn't understand anything I was talking about, but I sent him a video of the events I've been to. And when he was pitching for a sponsorship for an event, for a music concert, the guy said, no, we're in the entrepreneurship line. And the client, which was Virgin Mobile, opening up in Chile. And so he showed him this video that I had sent him. And he said, yes, exactly that. And so they bought our first event that we didn't even exist for like $100,000. And then we raised $1 million and we did a huge event in Chile. We brought Al Gore, Devendra Banhart, the vote. I was like, okay, I can do whatever I want. I guess I have that power. And that's how my entrepreneurship journey started, out of serendipity, really.
Wow, that's incredible. So, I mean, I think it's remarkable how you have this, I mean, it's just evident listening to you talk, you have this well of self-empowerment. You're like, yes, I can, even when, you, not that you don't have fears come up, but you have this courage and this belief in yourself to just say, yes, I'm going to do this. I'm going to, even though it's against the norm or against the, what someone like you might typically do. So I love that you just centered on that and relied on that and let it carry you into your purpose or your higher purpose. So you started putting on these entrepreneurship events. And then, I mean, it sounds like you were sort of unfolding into your more creative and spiritual expression at that point.
Yes, and there is a word of caution, because I think when you go into this creative high, like you get ungrounded. And at the beginning, because I haven't been in such a high for so long in my life. I've been in the lawyer, New York law firm, Washington, D.C., do this well, like everything was a detail. And, when you then you start with the creative part and you realize that you can create anything you want, basically, because I was able to create anything I wanted. Then I decided to come back and create a technology company because I felt an event was too short-lived and I wanted to have all that in a technology company. And I wasn't a technologist, and I created a first technology company, and I raised $800,000. I mean, I don't know how, like, this sheer belief in that I could do whatever I wanted. It was exhausting. I traveled the whole country. I had 2 kids. I did not take care of them very well at that time, I'm going to be honest, and something that I still regret, because when you're in this high, you unground, right? And then you become unstable because you put everything into one thing and not into the others, and that's not good. So I went the other extreme, Mashaila. So it wasn't a great, I don't have the best. It's not like it was all happy and wow, she's so great, she did that. It was really, I suffered a ton because it was so extreme, right?
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, because that really is a huge part of the topic of conversation of this summit. It's about harmonizing the light and the shadow. So here you are, you finally found your creative expression and you're opening up into this new creative energy, and there's that high there and there's the light there, but then also there's this other side of things, like, but my life is totally unbalanced. And it's like you had that unbalanced experience in the lawyer experience where you were making money and maybe you had a grounded family life, but you weren't nurturing your creative your
Exactly.
expression. So
100%.
how did you come to harmonize yourself and balance yourself out in all of this?
Great question. And I think that's what I'm saying. Like, when I look back at those times where it should have been of success, and I look back and I'm like, oh, Andrea, you almost, I almost got divorced, of course, my kids were not well attended as they should have been, and all these things that how do you harmonize? Because you hit rock bottom, because you're about to lose everything. You're about to lose your, you realize you're about to lose a relationship with your daughter the way that it should have been and it's not being, or you realize you don't attend the first day of, she changes school and you didn't even know that was the first day at the new school, and you, oh my God, and you realize that your relationship is not working at all. You realize that you, money wise, you're not where you have to be, you overspent and your finances are not in order. Like, you realize that your house is not in order, and you realize that makes you incredibly weak. Because not having that stability, for me, I'm a Taurus, I don't know if that means anything, but not having that stability at the end made me very, very afraid. It was not. it was like a fear, a constant fear. And I was like, I cannot live like this. This fear, why I have this fear? And the fear was, I think, it's because you were in a precipice, because you're so unbalanced, because you're so high that you are about to fall really anytime. You cannot live like that for a long time. It's very hard.
Yeah, yeah. So I know that you have balanced your life since then, and you now have a spiritual group for the inner goddess, and you're doing a lot of amazing things for minority professionals. And so talk about how, okay, so you hit rock bottom and then you sort of recovered somehow. What was that process like for you did you have to reassess everything and then decide, okay, I'm going to do this and not this? Or how did you regroup and realign to find that balance in your life?
That's a great question. I think the first thing is that I had to close my old company, and that was because of issues with my investor at the time. But I had to close it, and that was kind of a very, it hurt a lot because I had put so much energy. And so I had to restart with a new partner who was wonderful, had a lot of patience, and it was great for me. And so I found a new partner, which was excellent. But that relationship, I had to create the trust. It took a while, right?
Mm.
And then I had to just say that I was going to do one thing and do it well, and do it like more like a lawyer, would do it like one thing, do it as like a lawyer, you know, um, and and then decide that I was going to put as a priority my children. They were my first priority. That nothing I did was really relevant if my children ended up, you know, right, not taken care of, like because they hadn't been taken care of by the mother,
Mhm.
uh, and because children need a lot of attention, as you probably we all know, like we need to like be very attentive. What do they need now? What do they want? Like what they feel like, you're like constantly like trying, but if you're not super present with children, you miss all that, and then you don't know what they need. And so I felt like my first priority was like, what do they need? What do my children need? That's my number one thing. And the second thing is, how do I make money? That's it.
Mhm.
Forget about all these creative and conceptual things, that I was able to raise money for, but like, where is the business of this? And those are things that kept me very grounded. And then increasing my income, because of all the things I have done, like I had receive all this money, but I have always put everything into a business and nothing for me. And I'm like,
Mm.
change priorities. Things for Andrea first, get Andrea paid. So I got a job as a consultant for the university. I was also receiving money from some investors. And I'm like, I'm going to pay myself, and then I'm going to do this. So it was a change of
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah, I think that is a big shift for a lot of people who become entrepreneurs, and it's like, you're pouring into the business, but you forget you've got to take care of yourself, because if you're not healthy, if you're not balanced, if your cup isn't full, then everything else suffers. And yeah.
100%, Michelle, like 100%. That's super bad for entrepreneurs. We do that all the time at the beginning. Can last for years that we do that. We always put
Yeah.
ourselves last.
Yeah. So now what is your self-care regimen now? How do you keep yourself
Thank
harmonized?
you for the question. I'm constantly planning trips with my friends to go somewhere, like to a hot springs or to ski or to the beach. I don't care. Like I put a lot of time to like get away.
Mhm.
At least once a month, I would try to get away somewhere. And so that's one of the things I do. I just exercise. I go hiking, and I take my day very easy. Like I try to like I work a lot,
Mhm.
but I also like take a lot of breaks in between. Like I need to digest the whole day to see where I'm going, because my work is more about strategy of where I'm going and where I'm going to put the resources. Because I have a lot of things I could be doing with my time, so I need to like exactly know what I should be doing with my time. That's where I put a lot of so I need to like stay with myself a lot for that. And then I consult people. So I work with a spiritual coach once a week. I
Mhm.
work with clairvoyance at least twice a month. I work with Reiki. Like I use all the things that that you do,
Yeah.
like all those services. I use them because I need them.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, me as well. I find I get a lot of body work now because, well, for one thing, I'm sitting in front of the computer a whole lot. And if I get to the end of the day and I haven't exercised, I now have a membership at a gym that's open 24 hours. So, it can be really difficult at the end of the day, but sometimes I just got to get up and move. And if not, I got a little mini trampoline in my living room and a hula hoop, and I could turn on some music and just
Yeah, that's
play.
good. That's
But
good.
we've got to remember that we're not just, mental, we're not just spiritual, we're not just energetic, we're physical beings too. And this physical body has to be balanced. We have to balance it all. And if we just put all of our time and attention into one area, I mean, and the same is true with stay-at-home parents, where if you're only focused on your children and your family all the time, then when they're gone or when they go, when they leave home, you can be completely lost and devoid of like, oh, what's my purpose now? So even,
100%.
either way, there's got to be a balance. And so I love that you're sharing about work-life balance.
Yeah,
And
and I put a lot of effort into my friendships, girl friendships. I
yeah.
put a lot of energy there, like a lot. And I put energy into my husband too, but not as much as I put into my girlfriends. I do put some, but not, I
Yeah.
just put them like that's my first priority. My children, then my friends, then my husband, then everything else, then my work.
Yeah. Well, you have to know your priorities. And I think that for a lot of us, the hardest thing when you think about relationships, every relationship is something that gets to be nurtured. So,
Yes,
um,
100%.
yeah, I mean, like it's your circle expands, but then how much time and attention and energy do you have for each one? For me, that's always kind of the challenge too. And like, okay, how much can I fit into a day? And then I'll take those days where I'm like, I'm not doing anything today. I'm
Nothing,
just
nothing.
just gonna
Yes,
meditate and breathe.
exactly,
Yeah,
exactly. And I
yeah,
take a lot of those days.
yeah. Good, good,
And
good.
I'm also studying. I'm getting my MBA. I'm finishing, so that's another thing in my plate. That's a huge thing in my plate.
Yeah,
But that helps me to meditate because when you
mm,
have to study and do a paper or whatever, you have to just like do nothing else than
yeah.
that.
It's that focus. You must have
Yeah,
incredible focus when it comes to education, because it sounds like you've had a lot of education and you continue, which is wonderful.
I like it. I like you too. We're all learning. We're taking this class. We're learning. I mean, I think everybody like
Yeah.
that I've met lately is all like in a lifelong learning journey.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think we've never arrived. If you feel like you've arrived, then you're probably just stopped for the time being.
100%.
There's always more. There's always more to learn. So, talk to me about, where you're at on your spiritual path now, and how do you nurture that? And what is it that, that had you get to this point where you are now in your life, and like you're really speaking into the world of energy and spirituality more now than I think you were ever before.
Because I felt how energy like sort of like moves, and I feel it. I don't sometimes I when I was studying my inner goddess and I was connecting with a lot of these women in the spiritual world, which I was connecting as a client, but now we were connecting as right, like working together. I started feeling energies from everybody, and it was weird because these were powerful energies, and I was in this, and I started feeling everything that I realized I've always felt, but now I was like, this is so obvious. So I had to learn to, and there were people, telling us traumas and big traumas and things, and I was absorbing everything. So I remember I had an event. We had the first event, and everybody was telling about their things and I ended up exhausted, depleted. It was really tough because I didn't know how to separate. I absorbed everything.
Mm.
And then so I think learning to just to bubble up, learning that energy is something that you kind of like move, right? That your thoughts are energy, so stay light and really don't get into a dark in the shadows. I think there's going to be people that that trigger you or mirror, or their mirrors, and understanding what are they bringing up in you that you need to clear, and not stay in that shallow. I love the topic that you're talking about, shallows, because it's always about the shallows are the thing that shows you where you have to go do the work. You don't want to stay in the shallow very, very long, but you cannot ignore the shallow, because if you ignore the shallow, then you cannot really move to the light. So I don't know what you think about that, but I mean, the shallow thing, we're always escaping the shallow, and we hate it when it comes up, but I think the more you resist it, the worse it is, and the less you can advance. So I mean, it's like learning to like use the shallow as a trainer. It's like you're going to a gym, and the trainer's telling you you're not doing this exercise right, just lift up, and that's your shallow. Like if your shallow can be your trainer, can be the quiz that you get a B minus where you're not getting a B plus. Like what is not passing? What is it that you're not understanding? All these things. I think it can be a great teacher, but like sort of shift the mindset to understand it as a teacher, to not get freaked out when the shadow comes, when things get dark, right? When you get depleted and exhausted and you have no energy, understand that it's a phase. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a great way to describe it. And, like, it's kind of like your coach when that shadow stuff comes up, and we, as humanity, I feel like now more than ever, people are having to look at their shadow stuff because the world is throwing it in everybody's, in everybody's lap. So it appears as if the world is more polarized than ever. And it's easy to get unbalanced in all of that chaos. So the shadow is just pointing us to, okay, this is what you need to work on. This is what you get to look at. And this is your opportunity to evolve through all of it. It's interesting because everyone that I've interviewed has had some similar version of that, myself included, where, if you've been on your journey for a while, you've been doing your spiritual work, that you cannot just sweep the stuff, the shadow work under the rug. You can't just pretend that your problems and your upsets aren't there, because they're going to get bigger and louder, just like a trainer, like you said, like, okay, let's get to work. You have some things to clear here. And then you're not only doing it just for yourself, you're doing it usually for your familial generations, but yes, before you and your community.
You're clearing a lot of stuff for the next generation. I mean, you can see that when you repeat the same things that your parents used to do with your kids, and you do it automatically, and then you're like, can I change this? And you change it, if you're a little bit like aware. But right, I mean, if you don't have the mirror of your children to realize, I mean, you're repeating the same thing, absolutely the same thing.
Absolutely. That stuff keeps coming up. I had a mini version of it last night where I was having a little situation come up with an ex and I was working in the kitchen and my cat jumped up on the counter next to me, which is not allowed. And I reacted to the cat and like swished him down, and he was so offended, he went and hid. And I'm like, I'm not mad at you. I'm reacting to my ex and taking it out on my cat. I didn't hurt him or anything like that. And I went and gave him lots of cuddles. But I noticed immediately, I'm energetically agitated here. And it's not that, as a spiritual teacher, you don't get agitated. Of course you do. But it's to how quickly can we notice and recover and realize, oh, look what I'm doing. I'm letting someone else's energy affect me. And then I'm reacting to it. And then I'm letting that get on to other people or pets or, the environment.
So I think that energy hygiene has become something super important for me. Like,
yes,
so that it doesn't get messy, because it gets messy really fast. You start spilling, and then it's a system, because you spill into your children and your children spill it back to you, or your partner, and they get it back, and then it becomes all contaminated. It's like one stain, and then it's like, you're in the washing machine, and it all gets dirty. So very important.
Absolutely. And then we get to take a step back, like rebalance. I tabled the conversation, like, all right, I'm gonna go there tomorrow when I'm refreshed and clear, and stepped away, got myself balanced. And I think these are the things that I think it's important for people to know. Like, no matter how successful you are, no matter how much spiritual work you've done, no matter how great you are as at parenting or relationships, this stuff comes up. It's not that it's going to stop. It's not that your shadow stuff's ever going to stop. It's not that you're going to stop having difficult situations to deal with, but how do we react and how quickly can we become aware of our behavior and then balance it out or take that step back? And I think these times more than ever, each individual is being called to be able to step back and balance ourselves first before we enter into any conversation, political, religious, spiritual, or otherwise.
100%. And in every aspect, like you start feeling this feeling of not happiness, I don't know how to call it, dread, or whatever it is. You see something and you get jealous, for example. You see something and triggers you for any reason. You start feeling this unhappiness, right? This anxiety, and you don't understand. You don't understand why you're feeling certainly that way. You start feeling that you have a problem, but you don't know what it is. And then you're like, okay, why am I feeling this way? And then you realize, I'm feeling this way because I saw a post of someone with someone that I got jealous, let's say. And then you're like, okay, so that's a story. You're getting jealous because that person did something to you in the past, and they're hanging out with your brother that you love, and why, your brother loves them more than they, because, and then like you realize this is an entire story, that it has some aspects of reality that hurts, that someone did, and it still hurts you, but like you realize, okay, do I want to relive that and be unhappy again, or just let it go? And you're like, okay, well, just let it go, because it's just not worth it, my energy, my suffering. But that type of work I can do now very fast. It used to take me like weeks, months, right, to get to those conclusions. Now I can do it in like a matter of minutes. That I would say that's how the spiritual work has affected me. Like, it's not that those things don't happen to me. Of course they happen, but they take short to process. Like I move like an athlete faster through. Like, fall, I pick up really fast. I think that's what I've noticed.
Yeah. And that's the ideal, really. It's not that stuff's not going to happen. It's that you're going to notice it quickly and make the corrections. And like in the courses that I teach in Ascension training, I have people celebrate when you get triggered, when you get upset about something, as soon as you notice, to celebrate it, because number one, you're shifting your reaction to from negativity to a positive, but you're not bypassing it. You're just noticing, oh, look at me, I'm getting triggered by that thing. That's an old program that I'm choosing to take control of now and shift and upgrade.
Exactly.
Yeah. And that takes emotional maturity and awareness and presence to do
so
that.
What can I ask you, or maybe what is the ascension like? When you ascend, how do you train to ascend? Like, how?
I know
Because
there are a lot
I
of,
think we're all ascending, right? We're all trying to ascend.
Exactly. So there are a lot of different teachers out there. My version of Ascension is the embodiment of more presence, more divine presence. So it's not about getting out. It's not about leaving or extracting energy from the physical. It's about bringing more energy in. And like we've been talking about, balancing it quickly, harmonizing, learning what it is that takes you out of presence so that you can release those. It's really not that you're basically changing your relationship with the things that upset you. And I think you talked about this as well. So if you see, for instance, what you just said, somebody's hanging out with your brother and you're jealous, you look at yourself and say, oh, I'm running a jealousy program. That's my program of rejection. I'm feeling rejected because of a story that I've been telling, probably since I was a small child when I wasn't included, and possibly for lifetimes before that. But you get to change that story and change your relationship with that program and reprogram that reaction to be one of, I'm whole, you're whole. Oh, how wonderful. Look at them hanging out together. I'm so glad they're enjoying each other's company. I might call them up and say, hey, I saw you online. I'd like to hang out with you. Let's go do something fun,
Right. I
and
mean, you can change it so many positive ways, or even ignore it, but like don't let it suffer.
yeah. So
Because
it's
you can start,
releasing.
if you're not aware, you can stay with, they don't love me. They just don't love me.
Right, which is a story.
And
It's a
this could be
story.
like for a month, 2 months, 3 months, I don't know,
Yeah.
for a year, 2 years, I don't know, for a long time.
Yeah. And so from there, Ascension is really about just that awareness, the consciousness of our being, and bringing more in. And the more aware we become of ourselves, the more self-aware, the more, like you said, as you went along, you realized you were more sensitive. You're probably an empath. You're picking up energy from other people. So instead of hiding out and trying not to feel that, like learning, like, oh, look, I actually have a special ability. I'm empathic. I can feel things from other people. If I can feel from other people, I can probably feel from the cosmos or from, other energies that are out there. And so fine tuning and ascending our frequency, or our ability to activate and relate to everything around us, seen and unseen. And so for me, that's Ascension. It's really about bringing more presence and awareness to the physical experience of life. And then in doing that, we open up our ability to interact with the world of seen and unseen.
Yes, absolutely, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, and but this is all work that I continue to spend a lot of time, and when I fall off the wagon of
Mhm.
working on it, like it shows, so
Mhm.
it's not, it's like going to MIT. It's like if you want to learn finance, you go and learn. You want to learn to have this like spiritual, demeanor in life, and like collective, how you respond spiritually to things. You have to study and constantly sort of being study, surround yourself with people who are doing it, taking classes like yours, talking to coaches.
Mhm.
It's constantly coaching yourself on this. I don't think it's
Yeah.
something I can do without any help. It's not something.
Yeah. Yeah, it's co-creative and collaborative, and also, stepping out of competition and into everything is collaboration, right? It's all about, where I think the old paradigm was that we compete. The new paradigm is let's collaborate, let's create together.
Yeah,
I even see it with the musicians. I don't know, when I was young, I didn't see musicians partnering up so much, but now you always see like these various musicians partnering up and creating together rather than competing against. And
a
that
hundred
feels so
percent,
much better.
a
Yeah.
hundred percent.
Yeah. And that's what this
Yeah,
is all about. And so I know, part of your work is about minorities and creating platforms for minority professionals. Will you share a little bit about what you do there?
yeah. So my first company, as I said, when I came back from Chile, I created this company called Be Visible Latinx, which was a social network for Latinas. Then it was expanded to Latinas and Latinos. Then it was expanded to all underrepresented talent, and that was my first company. I closed that in 2018, and I opened a new company called Wall Breakers, which is my current company. And this is all because I wanted to help some kids, like underrepresented kids, get jobs and opportunities. And we do, because we train them and then we put them in front of the opportunity, and we work with the company precisely for this group. So yes, it's a social capital for sure. They didn't have access to its contacts, but it's also that they train and prepare themselves, right? I mean, it's a both.
Mhm. Yeah, wonderful. I love that you shared about your work, and that out of this desire to where you saw a need and you saw something that you could help with has opened up a whole business for
Have
you, and
changed.
now it's just changing
Yeah.
lives all over the place. Andrea, you have had such an interesting life, and you've done so many diverse things, and I love your generosity and your big heart, and just how much you're willing to contribute. And I've really appreciated learning more about you and your background. I know that you have a free gift to offer. Would you share about that?
Yes, I mean, anyone can email me at contact@myinnergoddess.net. And we can offer a couple of free memberships we're gonna launch our site there's gonna be a lot of circles and moon circles and healing circles and learning circles. So I would like to offer a couple of, 5 free memberships to anyone
Oh,
that
okay.
emails me.
So it's contact@myinnergoddess.net.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. And yeah, and then if there's a place to join, are you collecting for to join your list and be a part of your My Inner Goddess?
Yes, I can send our quiz later.
Okay, I'll be sure to include that in the write-up so everybody
thank you
can
so much.
find you
That's
and
how
reach out to you.
we got people into the platform, and
Yeah.
we are launching this new membership site. It's new, so we'll see. It'll take a little bit to roll out, but for now we had a Facebook group, and now it's going to expand to this membership group.
Wonderful. Yeah, and everyone can join your Facebook group as well.
Anyone can. My Inner Goddess.
My Inner Goddess on
My
Facebook.
Inner Goddess private Facebook group. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, great. Well, I have really appreciated our time together today.
Thank you, Stella. It's great work that you're
much.
doing, and I'm so excited to also learn. I want to learn more about yours, so I'm going to have to interview you.
I'm always game for that. So absolutely.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you, Stella.
Thank you so much. Yep, you got it, Washela. And thank you to everyone watching. I appreciate you, and we'll see you next time. Namaste.